Hey YouTube, Poopslag here, and this is TurboFat, an open source puzzle game I'm making in Godot. The source code is linked below, but this month I was adding some levels to the final chapter, including some new cheese pieces, which are totally crazy and new. And I also changed the way lives work to, I think, build some tension and make the game more fun. So let me show you what I did. So I wanted to try adding two new gimmicky piece shapes for the last chapter. All the 8 pieces in TurboFat are made by taking a 3x3 square and then cutting it in half. But I thought, what if you cut just a third out of it? So you have this little corner, and then you have a big corner on the other side, so you have these 2 triangle pieces. And I think it's pretty fun. It has some trade-offs because it's a lot harder to dig because these pieces are really like shallow, so you can't dig in wells very easily, but it's real easy to make tons of boxes. There's like so many more boxes than you can make with the original 8 pieces. But I think it sort of balances out, and I'll be curious what you guys think when you play with them. So all these new pieces thematically are cheese pieces, and then when you mix them with your dessert pieces, they make cheesy desserts, which all look pretty questionable, but the most questionable of these is the Hostess snack cake filled with spray cheese. Please don't do that. It doesn't look good, but I also had to add some tile rows to my tile maps, which had these cheese things in them, and that sort of would have invalidated all my levels if I didn't have the foresight to have this little backwards compatibility framework in place. So the way that works is all my levels have a version number in them, and then when it loads an older version, it'll translate it over all the steps of like, oh, if it's before I introduce the cheese pieces, that needs to shift these indexes around. If it's before I use hyphens instead of underscores, it'll translate that stuff. But yeah, this little framework really saved my butt for big changes like this. So I wanted to use these cheese pieces in different ways in the final levels. One being where you would have to dig really efficiently and show that you can survive, and one being where you would make boxes with them and show that you understand the new 3x4s and 3x5s and the patterns you can make. But I also just for fun wanted to try, what if you only get the big triangle piece and little O piece? Is there a way that you can actually survive and dig with that? Because it's very clumsy. But if you come up with something, let me know, and I'll be curious what kind of solution you came up with for that level. So I changed the way lives work in career mode, and in career mode you have like 6 levels to try and get to the boss and beat the boss level. And lives now work where if you lose a life on the first level, then for the second and third level you'll have 1 less life. And if you lose all your lives before the end of the run, then you have to start all over from the beginning of the chapter. The way lives used to work instead was like if you lost 1 life, it didn't really matter. But if you lost all the lives on a level, you would go back a few spaces and the day would continue. But the annoying thing about that was like, it's hard enough to just reach the boss in 6 levels, so going backwards was effectively a death sentence anyways, and it was just sort of annoying, so I think the new system makes more sense. So there's a few Japanese games like Point Blank and Bishibashi where every few levels the difficulty will just spike up suddenly, and if you beat that level you'll just feel amazing, but you usually won't. I wanted to have something like that in TurboFat, so I have these hardcore levels, and unlike Point Blank, you can opt into these and be like, yeah, I want to do that, or no, it's not worth the risk. And the risk is the level's a little bit faster, and you only get 1 life. So if you die, your day is over and you have to start all over. But the reward is you get an extra life for the rest of career mode that day, so a little bit of a risk and reward. So I'm really happy with how these button graphics look with these like bubbling skulls in front and the shadowy skulls behind it and this little halo. But it was really hard to make it work with Godot's UI system because like control nodes like buttons in UI don't have things like a z-index. So you can't say like, oh, this button has skulls that go behind it. You can't do that with Godot's node system. But what you can do is say like, I have an invisible control which has a sprite with a z-index of 1, which has a child of a button. That's how I'll clumsily pretend that this button has a z-index. The harsh thing about doing that, though, is now any like focus related things, like if somebody says, oh, like you're on, I need to focus this button. Now you need to say like, whoa, I'm not a button, I'm a control. You need to focus like my grandchild. And so it's really clumsy to make all this stuff work. I did jump through all the necessary hoops, but man, it's just never fun. So that's where we're at after December. The core game is mostly done, so it has like a first level and it has a last level. And then when you beat the last level, they just say stuff like, congratulations, you did it, and then it takes you to the next level. So that part's not quite done yet. I want to have a cool little credits sequence and a little ending animation, things like that, so I have some ideas for that. And also there is a 6th empty world like Vega Churn 12 where there's no graphics. And I'm going to pull it out. I had some plans for it, but I'm just going to make that the practice area. So I'm going to start on that stuff in January, and we'll see how far I get. In the meantime, though, if you want to try out the game as it is so far, it's free on itch.io, and you can wishlist it on Steam too. And that's where it'll be for sale when it's fully released, so it would really help me out. And anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next month. Take care.